Hello. Lecture 5. Buddha Goes to the Amazon, a truly individual quest. Early in Buddhism's encounter with Western Christianity, observers at the time marveled in anticipation of what might emerge from the long-term meeting of the two paths. But what is captivating the imagination of so many in the present time is the encounter of Buddhism with shamanic culture in Amazonia. Ayahuasca shamanism is like a medicinal, religious, mystical wave sweeping the planet. For many of the same reasons that millions in the West were intrigued and captivated by the potential of Buddhist practice, there is an increasing attention and respect for a gooey brew from the jungles of Southern America that promises rapid spiritual growth and lasting transformation. Ayahuasca, or yahe, is an ancient shamanic plant medicine used for millennia by the Indians of the Amazon to heal the mind, body, and spirit, as well as explore other realms of existence. It has also been known as vine of the dead because of its ability to stimulate visions of your own death. Ayahuasca may be the world's most powerful herbal medicine. It is surely not a drug to be thought of as a toy for escapists or a party offering, but rather an entheogenic medicine worthy of awe and considerable respect. Perhaps somewhat ironically, we first hear of its existence in the West from a Buddhist poet, Allen Ginsberg, and his friend author William Burroughs. The Yahe Letters, first published in 1963, is a collection of correspondence between Burroughs and Ginsberg. It's a hybrid of travel writing, an ethnobotanical field report, tales of shamanic alchemy, and political satire. Most of the letters date back to 1953 and chronicle Burroughs' peripatetic journey to the Amazon rainforest in search of yahe. The book ends with a further correspondence written in 1960 detailing Ginsberg's experiments with yahe that may remind you of someone at a party regaling you with endless narrative about a drug trip. Yahe letters languished on the shelves with other obscure literary psychedelia of the early 60s. But spurred by their reading of Burroughs and Ginsberg, Terence and Dennis McKenna journeyed to the rainforest to search for ayahuasca and had significant experience with Amazonian tribes, as detailed in the book Invisible Landscape, which they co-authored. Ayahuasca tea, made from the brewing of two Amazonian plants, Banisteropsis caapi and Psychotria viridis, engenders powerful visions in the drinker, allowing them to work through unresolved psychological issues, heal and transcend mental distress, and access inner strength and personal power. 3 to 8 hours of the ayahuasca journey has been likened by some to years of psychological therapy. There is evidence that it can be used to treat addiction, diabetes, cancer, chronic fatigue, asthma, as well as existential angst, emotional distress, and depression. In 1984, Jeremy Narby, a young PhD student at Stanford, traveled to the Peruvian Amazon to conduct field research for his thesis in anthropology. Narby lived for 2 years with native tribes and was stunned by their healing powers. For his chronic back problem, they offered a plant-based cure, and 3 days later the pain was gone. 20 years later, it has not returned. The native shamans told Narby something that he, trained in materialist rationalist ethos of Western science, could scarcely comprehend, that their wisdom derived from spirits within the plants themselves. In other words, they said the plants of the Amazonian rainforest spoke directly to them, giving them precise instructions for healing. According to the shamans, the visions often induced by the drug of serpents and jaguars, hummingbirds, eagles, brilliant multicolored tableau of gardens, lush forests, and Incan temples are not projections of the human imagination, but rather an alternative reality to which the brain's receivers become attuned. The plant spirits, known as doctorcitos, little doctors, or abuelos, grandfathers, teach shamans how to diagnose and treat illnesses. As Narby noted in his book, The Cosmic Serpent, there are some 80,000 varieties of plants in the Amazon. Ayahuasca is made by boiling 2 of them a vine and a leaf from different elevations in the rainforest. The leaf contains the hallucinogen DMT, and the MAO inhibiting vine gives DMT unrestricted access to the brain. One has to ask how the ancient Indian tribes discovered this composite compound with maybe billions of possible plant combinations. Brewing the ayahuasca tea is a painstaking process involving careful pre-soaking, boiling for days, filtering, mixing, and cooling. Could this have been the result of trial and error, or chance? Meanwhile, there is quite a spiritual industry forming in Peru and Brazil, where it is a legally sanctioned substance. With ayahuasca camps for foreigners popping up overnight with varying degrees of quality and sincerity, Americans and Europeans, many of them Buddhist or with experience in Buddhist practice, are traveling there for the chance to take ayahuasca in its native turf. Several of the ayahuasca camps have incorporated Buddhist deities and metta-meditation into their services. It appears that ayahuasca-drinking Brazilians are now taking more interest in Buddhism and Zen as well. Portuguese language websites such as enterogenos.org feature interviews with Buddhist teachers and discuss meditation techniques. Large South American religious movements that revolve around ayahuasca, such as Santa Daime and others, have migrated to the U.S., and one legal battle over the right to use ayahuasca in a religious context has gone all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and was victorious. There are now approximately 50 Santa Daime churches around the world, including Japan, Holland, and Australia. Rick Strassman, a physician and longtime Zen practitioner, wrote a book called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, about the healing power of the active ingredient in ayahuasca. Robert Tyndall, a Zen Buddhist, has just published a book called The Jaguar That Roams the Mind, his journey into the world of Amazonian shamanism. Buddhist teachers such as Frank Echenhofer, Alistair Appleton, and others serve as facilitators at ayahuasca healing centers in Brazil. I personally had significant experience with ayahuasca in 1985, which I wrote about in Zigzag Zen. I didn't reveal it in the book, but my shaman was Terence McKenna. I liken it to a field experience in advanced Dharma, where the truth of some of the Buddha's teachings were felt in a visceral way. Here are a few brief passages from my account. Throughout my journey, I was actively doing and thinking, but having confronted the truth of my demise over and over, it was painfully obvious that I had no actual inherent existence. I deeply understood for the first time that while suffering exists, no sufferer is really there. I was astonished that as the shaman asked me the question, "Did you suffer?" I no longer seemed to have much aversion or charge about suffering itself. As a graduate of the journey, I demonstrated my willingness to suffer and die. I reflected on the words of a gentle Buddhist monk from Sri Lanka, now living in Brooklyn. People are at their cruelest when they are intent on avoiding suffering. So in response to his query, I found myself smiling and uttered simply, "Yes," but I recognized the emptiness of it. The most obvious and powerful transformation resulting from this appointment with the shaman was in the area of my relationship to death. I was dramatically aware of how diminished my fear of it was, and that not only could I hold thoughts of death while remaining in a pleasant state of mind, I was actively looking at death and the reality of dying for inspiration, clarity, and a deeper context for my life. Beyond my new respect for death, the nature of my relationship to Buddhism also felt different. Whereas Buddhism used to seem more like a vehicle with which I was seeking a destination, it now seemed like a clever way to enjoy life in the present moment and not ask for more. I'm not sure I have any hopes for ultimate realization, but I do have a stronger interest in spending more of my life in Buddhist practice. Thank you.